Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to get started in a couple minutes to let more people connect and join. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're now 2 minutes in, so we're going to get started. Really excited to have one of our Bombora customers, Turtl, join us today to talk about how she created intent-based workflows within HubSpot to make her SDRs more efficient and has seen really incredible and amazing results. While today we're specifically talking about how to create these workflows within HubSpot, the concepts are very similar regardless of which marketing automation platform you use. So if you use a different marketing automation platform than HubSpot, definitely stick around because you'll still get a lot of value from today's session. Just a few quick housekeeping items. Everyone is on mute except for the speakers during the duration of the webinar. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please put them into the chat and we'll get to them at the end. And then finally, we will be recording this webinar. So after the webinar, we'll be sending the on-demand video and you can re-listen to the webinar in the comfort of your own home office. Just an added incentive for you to stay till the very end of the webinar. We are offering every attendee that stays till the very end a Bombora ring light. This is actually what it looks like, to make all of your Zoom meetings bright. So stay tuned till the very end of the webinar to claim your ring light and find out how to get yours. I'm excited to introduce the speakers today. So Carla Rivershaw is here with us. She is the head of marketing at Turtl. Carla, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Millie. So hi, everybody. It's great to be here. And yeah, as Millie says, I head up the marketing department at a company called Turtl. And I've been with Turtl now for a couple of years. And prior to that, I was working at Thomson Reuters for about 7 years in various different marketing leadership roles. So yeah, quite a deep history and all things marketing related. And yeah, excited to get stuck into the topic today.
Great. Thank you, Carla. My name is Millie Resnick. I am the VP of Product Marketing at Bombora. Bombora is the leading provider of B2B intent data, which we call company surge intent data. We're going to be talking a lot about company surge intent data today, so let's define it. Company surge intent data tells you which businesses are researching the products and services that you and your competitors sell. And that's how Bombora delivers value to sales and marketing leaders. We help them get the most out of their resources to drive pipeline, to drive leads, to drive sales opportunities and meetings. And the way that we do that is, so we monitor content consumption behavior for nearly 3 million companies worldwide across a growing taxonomy of nearly 8,000 intent topics. So an intent topic is related to a B2B product, a service, a company, a trend, anything of that nature. And what we're trying to do is understand the normal research behavior of a company against a topic or a group of topics. And we're trying to identify when there's significant changes in that research behavior compared to that usual benchmark or that benchmark that we're capturing. And when there's a significant change, typically an increase, we call that a company surge. And we deliver that data to our channel and partner network of over 35 integrations, including leading CRM platforms like Salesforce, marketing automation platforms like HubSpot and Marketo, and many others. So again, today we're specifically going to be talking about how Carla created workflows and used this data within HubSpot, but it's definitely applicable to any other marketing automation platform you might be using. So stay tuned because you'll get a lot of value there. Okay, great. Well, from here, I'm going to pass it over to Carla, who is going to talk about how she used intent-based workflows to drive SDR effectiveness. Carla?
Thanks, Millie. So yeah, I mean, I guess probably what would be helpful to start off with is just to quickly explain who Turtl are. So Turtl is a content automation platform that helps you to create interactive, personalized content at scale. And a big part of what we do when it comes to our demand generation and booking meetings is we have an SDR team or a BDR team, depending on how you call them. And they phone a lot of people, they email a lot of people about a lot of different things, ultimately trying to book meetings with them. And I guess where this story starts is, probably about 6-9 months ago now, something like that. I was listening into a phone conversation that one of our SDR team members was having with a prospect. And the prospect was, listening to what the SDR had to say about Turtl and basically said to them, your product sounds awesome, but you're too late. We actually were in market for something like this a year ago. We bought something else, which actually we're really not that happy with. Your tool would probably be way better, but you missed the boat. You're too late. And that really stuck with me. And I thought, gosh, how can we get better at making sure we call people at the right time when they're in market? So that was a problem that I really wanted to solve for. And the other thing I wanted to solve for was how can we increase the universe of potential accounts that we go after? Because I felt like our universe was pretty small. We had a set number of accounts within our HubSpot instance. And, obviously we would be adding to that list over time. But I felt like there was a much, much wider pool of potential accounts out there that we just didn't even know about that potentially could be in market right now. And I wanted to know who they were. So what I decided to do was I did a little bit of research into various intent data providers, and I came across Bombora. And one of the really neat things about Bombora is they actually have this free weekly alert that you can sign up to. And basically what that means is you can kind of select a few keywords that align to your business and your business interests and needs. And you can then get a weekly email that comes through to your inbox where it will basically give you 10 accounts that are currently actively researching those topics that you've selected. So what I did was I worked with one of our SDR team members, and anytime I saw something that I thought looked potentially interesting, I would send it over to him and ask him to investigate. And so over the course of maybe a month or two, he managed to book 4 meetings off the back of this free data we were getting from Bombora. And he was really enthusiastic about it, actually. He, I think, had one call where somebody said, wow, you just called us at exactly the right time. We were just investigating something like this. And we, hadn't been considering you because we didn't know about you. So this is great. And so that was really good feedback for me. And it obviously really helped to validate bringing in something like Bombora into our business. So I was able to create a business case quite easily off the back of that. So we did purchase Bombora, which was fantastic. And I was very, very excited to introduce it. But the next step was I wanted to build out a process so that, we were making the most of this fantastic data that we were getting through from Bombora. So these are the steps, you can see them on the screen now. These are the steps that I went through in order to introduce this to our business. And I'll now spend a few minutes going through that over the next few slides. So the first thing that we needed to do was to figure out what topics we should be using in order to identify the accounts that will be of most interest to us. So one of the things that Bombora allows you to do in the platform is you're able to select as many keywords as you want, really, that align to your business and your offering. And so we actually came up with about 100 keywords, which we felt in some way aligned to what we were doing. Now that's great, but that's actually very, very broad, and it can be a little bit difficult to know where to focus when you have so many keywords. So we decided to narrow it down to what we call high intent keywords. And these were keywords where they really, really directly related to our offering in some way. So for instance, as I mentioned earlier, we're a platform that allows you to create interactive content, and it's personalized content. So two of the high intent keywords that we selected were content personalization and interactive content, because we knew that if somebody, if like a company searched for either of these keywords, then one of our SDR team members would be able to pick up the phone and have a really good conversation with someone about content personalization or interactive content, because it directly relates to what we do. So we had the 100 keywords that were kind of more broader contextual information, and then there's much narrower high intent keywords. So that was the first thing. The next thing we then needed to do was to establish the right HubSpot filters and rules so that we could help the SDR team to prioritize which accounts to go after. So some of the rules, and you can see them on the screen here, some of the rules that we created were, for instance, there had to be at least one high intent keyword. That was an absolute must, because without that, it would be very difficult for them to know how to position their conversation. Apart from that one high intent keyword, there had to be at least seven total keywords that were also, showing up for that account in any given week. So 7 keywords, and at least one had to be a high intent keyword. And then there are other things around the quality of the research that's going on. So Bombora helpfully tells you what the average score is for those keywords. So generally anything that's 70 or above suggests that there's quite a high level of research activity going on within an account. So we want to make sure that there's a lot of people doing this research and not just, a couple of people, because it would probably be like finding a needle in a haystack if there were only, 1 or 2 people in a really large organization doing research on this. So those were the filters. And then the next thing we needed to do was to start taking those filters and those topics and all of that and build out a workflow so that we were able to start surfacing those accounts to our SDR team. So within HubSpot, similar to other marketing automation platforms, it's possible to create workflows where you can set a bunch of rules, and that will basically make things magically happen. And so we already knew what our filters were. And so essentially what the workflow does is every Monday morning, 9 a.m., the system will check for those filters, and any accounts that meet those criteria will be sent to the relevant SDR owners via Slack. So we wanted to make sure that it was super easy for the SDR team to be able to find out each week which accounts in their name had high research activity going on. And we felt that Slack was a really good way to do that. So now the SDR team knows which accounts they need to go after. The next thing is to make sure they know what to say to people within those accounts. So we spent quite a bit of time developing messaging to help the SDR team to ultimately know what to say to people within those accounts. So we decided to focus on those high intent keywords that I mentioned, primarily because those we felt we'd have the strongest opportunity to be able to have really good conversations with people about. So essentially we created a messaging framework for every single high intent keyword that we'd identified. And off the back of that, those keywords, we developed sequences within HubSpot. And those sequences basically meant that an SDR person could identify the contacts within an account that they wanted to focus on, and basically just start dropping their contacts into those sequences. And the really nice thing about Turtl is that we can automatically create personalized content. So what they were able to do with those sequences is you'd have really custom messaging based around those high intent keywords, and then a personalized piece of content would automatically populate within that email as well. So this is an example, as you can see on the screen here, of one of those emails that we sent out for the interactive content high intent keyword. So the messaging talks about the benefits of interactive content, and then, you know, the piece of content that we're sending them, obviously you can't see who it's for because I've removed the name, but it's completely personalized to that individual as well. And the response to these sequences really have been, you know, exceptional. We've had a lot of meetings booked off the back of it. So that was essentially the process, but we needed to make sure that we reinforced that process, because it's all well and good having this great process, but if nobody's doing it, nobody's following it, then you're probably not going to be very successful. So we had the process, and we basically started to roll that out to the SDR team via weekly check-ins that we had with them. So every single week, we would spend time with the SDR team reviewing the data that they were being sent, ensuring that it was valuable, making sure that the sequences we provided for them were working, the messaging was correct and was resonating with our audience. And the feedback we were getting off the back of these meetings, of these check-ins we were having with the SDR team was very, very good. One of the things that we created as part of this to help us to better track the performance of Bombora data was we have a property within HubSpot called Source. And so basically every time a deal was created within HubSpot that came off the back of data from Bombora, the SDR team member would tag that deal as being sourced by Bombora. So that allowed us to start tracking, you know, exactly how many meetings were being booked every single month off the back of that data. So, you know, you can see an example here on the left-hand side of one of the dashboards that we created, just a very basic one, which shows month on month how many meetings have been booked. This is actually a little bit out of date, the screenshot, as I took that screenshot about 2 weeks ago. So actually the March data is higher now, which is great. So yeah, that was essentially the process and how we reinforced it. And the results that we got, so this is data off the back of, I think, the first 4 months that we were working with Bombora. I think end of February, we provided this data to Bombora. We managed to book 40 meetings. We managed to increase the meeting creation rate by 300%. And remarkably, one of the most exciting things was we actually managed to close a deal in 6 weeks, which is basically unheard of for our business, because typically it takes anywhere between 6 to 9 months normally for us to go through the full sales cycle. So that was particularly exciting, and certainly, hopefully, a trend of things to come.
Thanks, Carla. That's pretty incredible results. You've obviously already done so much using the data. What are your plans for advancing your usage of company surge intent data?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, we love the Bombora data that we're getting. It's fantastic, but we also recognize that there are so many other sources of data out there that we want to include as part of prioritization program that we're doing. Because intent data is really fantastic, but also don't forget there's all these other data points such as, contacts that are engaging with content on our website, Turtl documents that we're sending out. We want to take into account things like, who these people actually are. Are they a good fit for us? Or, maybe they're not, in which case we shouldn't really be spending our time on them. We also want to look at things like anonymous company data. So for instance, we use a tool called Lead Feeder. And so we're able to track exactly which companies have been on our website, even if we don't necessarily know who it is. So we really wanted to come up a way with bringing all of this data together. And so we basically created a program which we coined Project Jellyfish, in line with the whole turtle sea theme. We thought that
makes total sense.
And it's basically an engine to help the commercial business to better focus their efforts on the most relevant and ready accounts. And so it pulls together all of the fantastic Bombora data, plus all of these other data points that I've mentioned, to give us a much more, and I hate this word, but I can never think of a better word, like a holistic view of exactly what's going on out there, and just helping us to better pinpoint which accounts to go after. So in terms of how we do this, then I guess there's two things. So firstly, we've created this very intricate scoring system. So it takes a look at all of those data points, and it provides a score based on all of these things. And so what we have is a company total score. And that allows us to be able to identify which accounts we should be surfacing to sales at any given time. So this is an example of a dashboard that we've created for sales. Obviously, I've removed most of the data in terms of who specifically we're showing to the sales team, but it gives you an idea of how we're able to start measuring accounts based on their engagement, their intent, etc. So they find this really helpful in terms of figuring out which ones are maybe the most ripe at this point for them to go after. The other thing that we do is we use all of this data that we're gathering to better categorize which accounts the sales team should, we're categorizing which accounts and individuals within those accounts, what they're actually interested in. So for instance, let's say there's an account that Bombora has surfaced for us where the company surge is content personalization. Or perhaps somebody within a particular account has read one of our Turtl documents on personalization at scale, or say from the lead feeder tool that we use to track who's been on our site, we can see that somebody at a company has visited our page around personalization. So there's 3 different data points, but all of them pointing towards personalization. And what that allows us to do is to tag that account as being interested in personalization. And so what that then provides is greater insights to the SDR team and the wider commercial team around what this account is interested in, and therefore what messaging they should be going out to them with and what sequence they should be putting them into. So this is an example here of another dashboard that we provide where it's basically showing you the different, obviously I've taken away the account information, but you can see the types of company interest areas that are being surfaced to that team so that they have just a better idea of the sorts of things that they should be talking about. And again, the kind of content that they should be sending to people within that account. So that's the trend we're going in. I actually see this getting even more exciting and sophisticated over time. It's a work in progress, but it's a really great way of bringing Bombora's intent data, Turtl's data, plus all these other sources of data together to just have a much stronger approach and better prioritization for our business.
Great. Well, thank you, Carla. That's really awesome. Really looking forward to hearing the results of this as well. So I wanted to mention one quick thing. Really excited to announce that we've recently released a brand new feature exclusively for HubSpot. So it actually provides the ability to generate automatically within your HubSpot instance net new accounts. So as Carla mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, she was also looking to expand her target account list beyond the known accounts that already exist within her HubSpot instance. So I know the backstory. She was telling me how, the known accounts are typically just people who've interacted with Turtl in the past, or anecdotally, salespeople will do some research and add them as known accounts within HubSpot. But there's also this whole universe of net new accounts that are within Turtl's total addressable market that are also actively interested or could be in market for their products or solutions. And it was unknown to them. And so this is a brand new feature that we've just released exclusively for our HubSpot integration. And Carla, I know you are one of our earliest adopters of this feature. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, this is fantastic. And, it was actually one of my first questions when we signed up to Bombora was something like this in the roadmap for you guys. And I was assured that it was, and it's been really, really excellent to test it out. I mean, it's still very early days, but we're seeing a lot of really interesting data coming through to our HubSpot instance now. And with all these accounts that didn't exist in there before. And I think over time, particularly as we put them through Project Jellyfish and start to serve different pieces of content to these accounts based on what Bombora is telling us they're interested in, and we should get a better feel for whether they're the right fit for us as a business. But yeah, no, I think this is super cool and really excited to continue experimenting.
Thanks, Carla. Super excited about that. So you guys might now be excited as well, because if you've made it this far, thank you, first off. But secondly, you have now earned your Bombora Ring Light. So we will be sending out emails post webinar in the next day or so, confirming your mailing address to receive your Bombora Ring Light to make all of your Zoom meetings bright. Okay, so now we're going to go into some questions. I know you have plenty of them. And while you start thinking about and brainstorming those questions, I have a question for you, Carla, one that a lot of marketing folks have asked me in the past, which is, it's really hard sometimes to get SDRs or sales folks to adopt a new process or new data. What tips do you have for those folks to get their teams on board?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's always a challenge adopting new tech in a business, particularly where it requires the sales and SDR team to start adopting it. So how we approached it at Turtl, it was pretty simple, actually. We just picked a couple of champions to work with, and we worked really, really closely with them, first of all, to make sure that we were using the right filters, we had the right messaging in place, that basically everything we were serving them was useful and that they completely understood how it worked and what to do with that data. And then they started to test it. And what they saw was actually, hey, it's easier for us to book meetings using this data than just basically using our intuition as to who to go after. And so they very quickly became really strong advocates for the data we were providing, and good news spreads quickly. So it wasn't long before we had other people within the commercial team raising their hands and saying, hey, we want access to this data too.
Great. Great advice. So we have tons of questions in the chat. Carla, are you using a contact database, ZoomInfo, or something else to get personas of the companies that show intent?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I think ZoomInfo is one of our favorites. We have access to quite a few different databases, but ZoomInfo does tend to be the main place that we get the data from.
Okay, there's a question about intent data getting pushed into HubSpot once a week. Yes, it does get pushed automatically once a week on Sundays. How did you decide the parameters for the HubSpot filters, also known as how many accounts to surface?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key really is that you don't want to overwhelm your sales team. And actually, we had to do a little bit of experimenting with this, because at first we were like, okay, maybe we should be surfacing more accounts to them. But what we found was that the sales team quickly said, you know what, this is too much. Like, I'm getting 70 alerts a week. Like, I can't pay attention to all of this. I don't know what to focus on. And it kind of like negated the whole point. You know, we wanted to make this super focused for them so that they knew how best to prioritize their time. So we actually made the parameters fairly narrow so that, you know, maybe everyone would get, I don't know, say like 8 to 10 accounts that were flagged to them on a weekly basis. And then they could make some decisions based on what they understood about those accounts as to which ones to prioritize. So I'd say our SDR team on average maybe focus on 5 accounts each per week. And that seems to be enough to generate the volume of meetings that they need to meet their quota.
Great advice. Have you found it useful to mention the Bombora data in your email templates?
No, we don't do that. I mean, perhaps we could, but I don't know. I think it just comes across as creepy, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's better to be like a little hidden secret.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, they don't need to know that.
Yeah. Okay. In the HubSpot workflow slide, was the high intent topic a field that pulls from Bombora, or was that a custom field that Turtl created?
Yeah, so you actually set that up within Bombora, and then that automatically creates a new property within HubSpot.
Right.
And then every week, Bombora will populate that property for you.
Cool. Lots of questions. Hopefully everyone's getting a lot of great insights from this. Carla, did you provide leads at surging accounts to the SDR team, or did you let them hunt the leads using their own data provider access?
So we in marketing don't provide them with the leads. We provide them with the accounts that they need to focus on, but then we have another internal process for how to source those leads. So we have a research team, for instance, who will go out and actually use tools like ZoomInfo to figure out who the best people are to, you know, pull into our database. And then the SDR team will start to send emails and call these people to try and book the meetings.
Great. Okay, I think just one last question. Is it your SDRs and not your marketing team that add prospects to the appropriate nurture programs? And is all this done in HubSpot?
Yeah, so we use the sequencing tool within HubSpot. So it's not marketing emails that are going out, it's one-to-one sequence emails. So it is down to the SDR to put the contacts in. So the research team will load the contacts into HubSpot. There'll probably be lists or something like that. And then the SDR team will drop those contacts into the sequences. I mean, it's all very, very simple. It needs to be, because we're working with SDRs. Sorry, that was like a dig at SDRs. No, I love them. They're great. But no, it's up to them to put them into the sequence.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Carla, for coming on and sharing your insights with the group. And thanks everyone for joining the webinar. I think this is the end. Thanks for all the great questions. If we didn't get to your question, we'll follow up afterwards. And if you've made it this far, don't forget to look out for your ring light email. Well, thanks everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.